Hi everybody, welcome back. Today we're actually joined with a very special guest. This is Dom from Hill's.
Yep, Hill Pumps.
Hill Pumps.
Yeah. Ernest Hill's one of the oldest companies in the UK, isn't it?
It is actually, yes. Yeah, we're founded in 1841, so we've been around a while.
I remember it well.
For our viewers who don't know Hills, I mean it's a really well-known brand within the airgun industry. But just in case anybody's watching it who's not familiar, tell me about Hills. Give us a quick potted history of how Hills came about, what they do, and why you make pumps.
Why we make pumps?
Yeah.
So Ernest Hill is an old established engineering company. We're based in Sheffield, right in the centre of Sheffield. Founded in 1841. The company used to manufacture a lot of veterinary equipment, so ear syringes, and believe it or not, rings for bulls, all sorts of things like that.
Right.
They also made tyre inflators, and John Boyd Dunlop, who was a vet in Ireland, although he was actually Scottish, he decided to try and make a pneumatic tyre for his child's tricycle, and he was the first person to try and actually make this pneumatic tyre. He used a Hill football inflator, or a Ernest Hill as the trade name was, football inflator to try and get air into this pneumatic tyre. And he and Ernest Hill met up, and the history sort of moves on from there. So the initial one was a very simple pump for pumping up bicycle tyres, and then when they got into the automotive industries, kind of kicked in sort of the early 1900s, 1908, 06, then they really started to need higher pressure. So brought a couple of pumps along with me today.
They look really interesting. Yeah.
So this is one of the original pumps. So this was the first two-stage pump. Nice fold-down feet, as you will see.
Wow.
All made out of handmade out of brass. So Ernest Hill had its own brass foundry. I mean, we're talking such a long time ago that Ernest Hill even had their own thread. So this was before Whitworth standardised the common thread. So you literally made your own nuts and bolts. You made everything. They turned their own wooden handles and things. So from the two-stage pump, it was clear that they needed higher and higher pressures for these things, and this is
two-stage.
So that's a two-stage.
So what pressures are we looking at for?
I mean, in terms of air rifling, incredibly low. I mean, this would pump up quite handsomely a track bike, as in a track road racing bike, cycle bike. In fact, we're asked more and more now if we could develop one of these, which was one of the original high pressure bicycle tyre pumps, if we could reinvent it and bring some out to the market, which I guess we probably ought to, really, because that many people have asked us now. So once they realised that they needed higher pressures for the cars, Ernest Hill developed this, which is a three-stage pump. So as you can imagine, three-stage pump goes through 3 stages of compression to get up to the high pressures. I mean, this pump with its beautiful leather washers and things in it would never get up to the pressures that you need for a PCP.
Show everybody on that. It's a lovely, just gorgeous.
So what sort of pressures were they getting at? Because this is for car tyres, so 42 psi, 50 psi.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So the two-stage pump would do that quite happily.
Right.
The three-stage pump will go a bit higher than that, but still you're nowhere near even 100 bar.
Right.
It's obviously people get.
But the principle of three-phase pump is in there, and then what year is that one produced?
So this would be around the 1908, I think 1909.
Right.
I've brought some of our original catalogues with us, actually, and we've got the original drawings. So this is a pump that was patented by Ernest Hill under the Ernest Hill brand. So I've brought those documents up so you can take some photographs and show them to the viewers.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, right. So what came next?
So after that, in terms of PCPs, So in terms of PCP pumps, we were approached by a company, Air Arms, Bill Sanders, who said he had one of our old pumps, but he couldn't quite get up to the pressures he needed. By pure chance, I'm an avid air rifle shooter and shoot firearms as well. And was very interested because I had this problem myself where my cylinder that I'd used for years was actually, took it into the dive shop to get them to fill it up, and they said, sorry Dom, can't give it you back, we've got to chop it in half. I was like, what do you mean you've got to chop it in half? And they said, I'm sorry, it's failed the inspection. I said, what inspection? They said, well, we have to inspect them, and it's failed. It's the inside is corroded, so we literally can give it you back, but it's coming back in 2 halves. And I know this dive shop really well, and I was quite surprised. So we then started to take this idea a bit more seriously. So we stripped down. Luckily, I have all these in our sort of in our machining. Sorry, in our tool room and things. We had a collection of all the old pumps. So we stripped one down and started developing
So you reverse engineer something from 1908?
Bizarrely enough, yes. That's exactly what we did. That's exactly what we did, yeah. So we worked on it for nearly 2 years actually, and came up with the sort of the first Hill pump, or modern Hill pump that would go up to those pressures quite easily. The problem with pumps is that you can make one very, very easy to pump, but you would be pumping it all day. Or you can make one that's a little bit harder to pump, but you get there quicker. And it's understanding what the public want. And I think the first one we brought out was maybe a bit too manly. It was quite strong, the first pump. You had to put a bit of energy into it to get it to pump up. So we then developed from there a pump that was slightly easier to pump. But it soon became apparent that actually one of the biggest problems is moisture. Putting moisture into the into air rifles is a huge problem. So we were approached by a company called Anschutz, which is a German, I believe, German company, and by another company, an Austrian company called Steyr, and they had one of their pistols, which they had stripped down, having a pump had been used to charge this thing many times, and it belonged to a girl who I won't mention, but she was an Olympic shot for the British team, and the inside of it was completely destroyed because so much moisture had been put into it.
We've seen that where they're virtually green inside. And where does all this moisture come from?
It comes from the air.
But how does it? I mean, if we're not swimming. How does it become such a problem in once you compress it? Is it because of the heating and cooling, or?
I mean that has a huge effect. But there's a certain parts per million of moisture in the air that we're sort of sat in now that we don't notice so much. But once you're actually condensing or compressing this in, you're creating a problem. But you've also mentioned another one of the problems is you generate a huge amount of heat when you compress air, and that then when you actually put into the cylinder, it expands.
It cools down.
Which, as everybody would know, creates condensation. So you are actually making the problem even worse. So you're actually creating moisture, as it were. So we work very closely as a company with the University of Sheffield, with the engineering department. We still sponsor one of the medals at the University of Sheffield, the Ernest Hill medal for metallurgy, and we got lent a group of 8 students, and we worked with them carefully to try and look at this problem and see what we could do to combat it. And they came up with the dry pack, which we put onto the air rifle pumps. Unfortunately, not everybody takes it seriously, and we're a really good engineering company. We're not a terribly good marketing.
So we have a pump here with a dry pack.
So this is the latest Hills pump, and when you're talking about the dry pack, we'll try and get a close up of this, but that's the dry pack, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah.
So you've obviously got a pre-filter there.
Yep, sintered. Yep, that's right. Yeah,
that's sintered brass. Yeah, sintered brass,
which is mainly for taking out the particles. Yep.
And then it obviously goes through this part here, which is made up of what materials?
We don't actually tell people what that is.
Okay.
It's
so
part,
what grade
it's part,
of silicon it is?
It's part of the package. It's not actually. It's not silica.
Okay.
It's not silica. But we don't tell people exactly what that is. Obviously, a lot of our competitors are very keen to find out what that is.
Yes.
And it is. Sorry. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
It is specially made up for us. And it's very good. So we did some independent tests.
Sorry, I'm presuming obviously when the air goes through here, that basically is stripping the air as much as possible of the moisture.
Correct.
And
exactly.
Just so everybody understands, because obviously when you get something that then becomes saturated with moisture, what does it do? Does the moisture disappear?
No, absolutely not. No.
Okay.
So the beads in here are literally trapping the moisture and holding on to it, but they can only take so much.
Right.
So that you do need to change these, and we recommend that they're changed.
Which is basically this is the refill.
Yep. Correct. Yeah.
And so any retailer that obviously stocks the Hills pumps can get
absolutely.
which we do, to be honest with you. But just so as everybody understands how it works.
Yep.
Okay. That is there a how do people know when it's full?
So we looked at various ways of doing this, and actually, if you were talking of sort of silica gels and things, there are chemicals that can be added in that change the colour. Unfortunately, they're also carcinogenic, so we decided to steer away from those. Mm-hmm. So the way we recommend that the granules are changed every 3 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And they're drawing moisture from the air whether you're using the pump or not, aren't they?
They are. Obviously, they're drawing it a lot more when you're forcing it down through the drying system. But you're quite right, Tony. Which is why they're in this vacuum seal pack when they're sent out. Yeah.
So they've got indefinite life. Well, I like that.
Yeah.
Just for the cheapskates out there, including me. I mean, if you got these granules and they were moist, could they be heated and?
I understand what you're saying. No, they can't because of the actual compound that this is. It's not silica.
Okay.
So you can't bake it and bake the heat back out of it.
Okay.
It's literally a molecular system that holds the moisture inside and won't release it.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it then needs to be.
But these are. I mean, what's the rough retail on a refill? Because I can't remember, to be honest. I know it's not much.
I can't remember. I think it's either £1.50 or £1.90 or something.
Not so bad.
So yeah, nothing to even consider. To be honest with you, if you value your rifle, I'm
about to say that because we invented it, but I wouldn't not pump up. I wouldn't use a pump to pump up my rifle if it didn't have a dry pack on it.
Now, I've noticed as well that you're the only company that has this large external dry pack filtration system. Is that correct? I've never seen anybody. So what just again, so the viewers know what the alternative pumps. There's a lot of Chinese pumps about now. The FX have a pump out, etc. What do they use, and why don't they use this system?
Because we patented it. It's the simple answer. Once we realised and understood the problem that people had with moisture and the moisture then getting into the air rifle. So once somebody explains it to you, it's very simple. Then you realise straight away you don't want that moisture in your air rifle. We developed this and we patented it. So we patented the drying of the air. For PCP.
I've heard, for instance, the FX pump uses glass balls or something to.
And they do, and actually that will take a small amount. If you can imagine what we were talking about, condensation.
Yes.
A little bit will cling to those glass balls, but there's so few of them that it's not a viable way to really go ahead.
And the Chinese, they just don't do anything. They just go
straight. No, they don't. No.
So some I have actually found I've stripped some of them down and they've got some sort of metallic balls in them. I don't really know how.
It's the same principle.
Might work on the same principle, but actually, what this does is it actually strips out the moisture from the air as it goes in, and it's no good doing it after you've compressed the air either. Because then you're dealing with high pressure, which is dangerous. You need to really try and strip the moisture out before it it goes
Is there a percentage that you remove? Do you know roughly?
So yeah, we do know actually. It was all completely tested independently by the University of Sheffield. In fact, in my notes somewhere over there, I've got a little card which explains. So it takes so with the sintered disc at the brass disc at the tops, you take about 99%, I think we call it, of the particles out of the air that's going into it. If you imagine if you're just on your carpet at home, all of this kind of stuff that you don't really see is actually amazing.
Which destroys the seals inside the gun.
Is going into all of these guns that people don't realise. So just filtering the air, forget the moisture, is a benefit. Bits of grit and things that you don't see. And then the actual particles, so when they're first in the pump, first in the dry pack, they're at their best. So you're looking at sort of 90%, 95% of the moisture being stripped out.
Okay.
So as time goes on, that
breathing
gets...
quality air, is that 99 or is it 90?
They changed the standard of breathing quality air. I can't remember exactly when, but I think in about 2005. So the standard of breathing quality air became actually drier than it used to be.
Yeah.
This, with the new dry pack on for the first couple of months, is to the same standard as the old standard was for scuba diving.
Right, okay.
Until they made it even drier. Which is now why, as soon as you get out of the water from scuba diving, you desperately need some drink.
Because I think in some diving they put moisture into the tanks
because it is too dry. Yeah, it is too dry.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
I mean, at the end of the day, we as humans, we do need a bit of moisture.
Yes, that's right.
Well, that's
very interesting.
It is interesting, yes, because it sort of leads me to believe that if you want to make sure that your air rifle is in good condition, then you've no choice but to buy a Hills pump. Although saying that, I'm not saying that in a bad way, but it looks like the competitors just basically are lagging behind.
Well, they kind of ignore the
this
problem, don't they? It's working from the airgun manufacturer's side. The guns in the 80s and 90s, when you take those apart now, sometimes for an LR90, for instance, they can be quite badly corroded inside, and they have quite thin walls, and it's a point for concern. But it's a 20-something-year-old gun, so it's not not being used every single day. The modern guns, they tend to engineer them, well, the top end of the market does. They engineer the guns to, for instance, the cylinders usually now have some form of Teflon coating in them to try and combat in terms of corrosion. The valves are made usually of different materials to stuff that I can remember seeing the old brass valves coming out of the guns green.
There's a lot more stainless steel used in the internal workings.
Again, to combat the fact that a lot of the people are using pumps, and of course they're using them on a lot of export guns now are being pumped at source, and a high power gun is an awful lot of pumping, generating an awful lot more heat, much more than the UK. So it's a bigger problem abroad, but obviously if this system gets around all that.
It does, yeah.
Have you got any tips for the viewers on any other thing that, like, for example, pumping technique? We get guys in the shop who basically, we watch them and they go hell for leather at these pumps, and we always tell them to be a little bit more considerate, a little bit slower, and to stop the heat build up. Absolutely.
So I mean, slow and steady. So my girls shoot competition 7-meter it is in the Pony Club, 10-meter air pistols. So I'm using the pump 3 or 4 times a week, pumping up the cylinders and things, and using your leg muscles far better than using your arm muscles. So actually, if you basically use your legs to be the pistons.
Well, I always think, do you remember, like in the old days with the police, when they used to go evening all?
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's funny because I always tell people to hold it, to actually have the arms straight, and actually use your body and just bend your knees. So you actually look like an old-fashioned policeman. evening all, but it's much easier to use your weight than your strength.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely it is.
And actually, I know this might sound really pedantic, but is there a sort of recommended speed? Because
there isn't really a recommended speed.
Is it?
Is there a video? Is there a Ernest Hill keep fit video?
I'm afraid there isn't. As I said, we're
giving you ideas here.
We're very good engineers. We're terrible at marketing. We've missed the point. I mean, the only thing I do is, I literally count out a number of pellets. So for one of my air rifles, for example, I have a small leather pouch with my air pellets in it. I might count out 50 or 60 pellets into that. Once I've gone through those, I will top up the rifle, because it's just so much easier topping up
than doing it from empty.
Than going from empty, which is...
I've heard temperatures inside the pump touching 200 degrees.
The temperatures are very high. You would have to pump considerably, very quickly and a lot to get up to that kind of temperature.
Can you melt the seals if you really overdid it?
You could, and unfortunately on some of the competitors' pumps, the seals are not quite manufactured of the same materials.
Not good at that.
Well, do you know what?
But it's true. So we've took one of so every pump. So they're all manufactured in Sheffield.
Yeah.
The final stage of manufacturing, they come off. They go straight onto a test rig, so every single pump is 100% tested before it leaves here. But what we've done is, so the test system is a pneumatically driven system, pumps it up to pressure. They're held there for 10 minutes to check.
So you can see that there's no back pressure.
So we can see that there's nothing coming through.
Yeah.
But occasionally we take a pump and we go through the destruction mode, where we turn it on at 9 o'clock in the morning and we leave the pneumatic pumping it all day long. And amazingly, we very rarely burn one out.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean, please, everybody, that you can just go pump it.
It's a challenge.
It is better to look after it, and if you feel it's getting hot, have a break. Just a couple of minutes, let it cool down, pump again.
I don't think in the UK it's going to come up.
We've got the very same seal in our new electric air compressor that's coming out in the summer.
Oh, you can tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, let's
I'm not
about
going to tell you too much about it.
The speed at which we do these shows, this is not going to come out till June, July.
The Mark II will be out by the time this video comes out.
As Tony knows, he's been asking me for many years. In fact, sometimes
I think
when we meet up in
15.
I think it's certainly a number of years. I can remember every time I go to the SHOT Show and I come in and I bump into the SHOT Show. It's like, have you got my electric air compressor yet? Well, the answer is yes, we have. We've been testing very, very carefully. We're a bit like you were talking about fire arc. I couldn't help over here. We've taken a long time to develop our electric compressor. There are compressors out there on the market. It's a bit like the Hill pump. We took a long time to make it, a long time to produce
112 years, I think.
Thank you. It's going to work, and it's going to be.
When are we going to see that?
So it should be ready in July.
How much is it going to cost?
I'll just hold from that for a moment. We're very aware that it's a very price sensitive market.
Can we get one for the show as well? I think that'd be nice.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I've always promised Tony he would be one of the first people to get it, because he really has been encouraging me a lot.
It's an exciting proposition. You probably know there's a new pump from Highland Outdoors coming, which is the Nomad 2 that looks very interesting.
Yep.
But obviously it's more competition.
Yep.
And it's a British made product.
And it's a British
made in Sheffield.
England. Yeah. Sheffield steel. Can't bend that.
Let me just one quick one. I don't know whether anybody's actually seen one of these pumps before. I'm sure most of you have. I was going to say that how quickly and easy is it to put it together? Oh, right, okay.
So dry pack on. Obviously that's got no granules in it at the moment. And I did that the wrong way around. Sorry.
Wasting time here.
Do you know how it goes together?
Yes. I took that off. That's my.
Okay, that's to hold the base on, yeah.
Right. That holds the base.
Ah, I see.
Okay, right, and then that goes over the top, and the dry pack granules. This
so you
unscrews.
don't have to have the dry pack, because there is an option to not buy it.
You don't have to. Unfortunately, I have toyed with the idea.
That was 30 seconds.
I've toyed with the idea of stopping selling the pump without the dry pack, because being a shooter myself, I know you need that dry pack on there. Unfortunately, everybody who we talk to and we compete against, they don't have the dry pack. So it just makes it
cost.
Absolutely, yeah. I wouldn't.
Well, the funny thing is that we've been selling the Hills pump for many years. I've always supported them, and we actually did find that at first we would sell a lot of pumps without the dry pack, but surprisingly, unsurprisingly, a large percentage of customers would actually order them at the same time. And I think at one time you didn't actually sell it as a complete unit, and then you started to sell it as a complete unit. And
so the first one was a retrofitted.
That's right,
because we suddenly realised that this huge problem.
Yeah. Now we find that we have two customers. We have somebody who just wants the cheapest pump, so they'll buy the Chinese ones at £99 or 119.
Yep.
But you will get quite a few people who seem to be more discerning, and they will ask me what the best pump is, and they buy it with that all the time. So
I mean, you can buy the standard pump and then upgrade. You can buy they are retrofittable, so you can buy one and fit it.
But in my opinion, if it's one of those things that is such a good idea that you might as well just kick off.
I'm just wondering how. I mean, I know how people think really when they buy this. They buy the one. They get two in a pump.
Yep.
How many of these packs do you sell as retro?
Well, it's interesting. In the UK, we sell the majority of pumps, unfortunately, without the dry pack.
Right.
In the United States, the majority of pumps, and we sell thousands and thousands of pumps into the US, they all go with a dry pack, and they buy tens of thousands of the refills. They literally are taking it very seriously, changing it every 3 months, and doing it properly.
Right. Well, that's what we need to come away from this video.
Exactly.
Which is basically, if you've got an expensive, well, in fact, actually, if you've got any air rifle whatsoever, but in particular, if you've got a more expensive air rifle, it's false economy not to.
And you do see this quite a lot on returns. When you take them apart, you find that usually it's particles that kill the guns more than anything else, because you get a small particle going through that knife edge where the seal goes for the firing valve, and that's taken out by a small piece of dust or grit, which is usually got in from the front end, and most of the warranties are like that.
Yep.
Seals as well, they tend to get damaged as well, particularly moving seals.
Yeah, right. So we've got two particle filters in this, which again people don't realise. So you've got the sintered brass up here, and then inside you've got a very another filter in there, which is also the final filter of particles from going in. So
brilliant.
Excellent.
Well, I'm really looking for. I really appreciate you coming down and explaining
thank
things.
you very much.
It's interesting. I've been selling them for years, and I didn't know some of this information.
And next time you come up with electric compressor.
I will. Yeah, well, you're welcome to the factory. I mean, come along to the Hill factory anytime you want. You really are welcome.
Excellent.
Well, I think we should get out of the meat locker and go and do some go and do some visiting. Yes, definitely. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you, Dominic. See you again soon.
It's been great. Hope you've enjoyed it, guys. And part 3 is coming up very soon.